Nivesh, welcome to another episode of Careers and Culture. It's fabulous having you on my show.
Thank you.
Nivesh, coming from South Africa, how did you adopt a career in the arms industry?
Well, my love for mechanics and mechanical toys started off at a very young age, and which led me to become a mechanical engineer. I've been in the mechanical engineering industry for the last 15 years. That led me up to the point where I ended up getting retrenched. At that point, I had been a sport shooter for a while, and after my retrenchment, I decided to take my hobby more seriously, and that's when I decided to take over the gun shop, the existing shop.
Can you take us through your store and what it holds?
Sure. My shop is predominantly a sport shooting shop as well as self-defense, so I cater for a range of self-defense firearms as well as sporting firearms, as you can see on the display and up there. I'm also an avid sport shooter. I participate in IPSC matches, which are held regionally as well as nationally. I'm currently in the KZN shotgun team, and I have represented KZN late last year, which was my first match for the Shotgun Nationals, which was held in Cape Town. And yeah.
Can you show us one of the guns? I'm keen to see one of those.
Sure. This is my flagship. It's for the 6716 DMR.
May I see that, please?
Sure.
Whoa, this is a heavy gun. This is kind of heavy.
It is heavy. It's what the US military carries and what our soldiers, or their soldiers, run around with.
Hey, what did you say this was again?
This was the 6716 DMR. That's the model. The make is SIG, and the 716 DMR is the model. DMR stands for Designated Marksman Rifle. Something like this would set you back in the region of about 80 to 90,000 rand. And that's just for the firearm. It's what the military would typically use as a sniping as well as battle rifle.
And Nivesh, traveling internationally and coming back to South Africa, how would you differ standards compared to South African standards?
I've traveled extensively with my engineering career, and the standards with regards to engineering and more, bringing firearms into it, especially with the different brands that we do across the board. Firearms that are brought in mostly from your Eastern Bloc and European countries are made at a much higher standard than, I would say, firearms that are brought in from the Far East. For example, China, your Norincos and those types and the like. Also, firearms that are made in the US, also very reliable. And but with that reliability comes a price, and those firearms are typically more expensive than your, let's say, cheaper firearms that are out of China and the Far East.
In your journey, you must have faced a lot of challenges. What were they and how did you deal with them?
Coming from the engineering industry and background, I used a lot of my challenges to focus and to drive and motivate me. So I used it as my object that I drew strength from. One of my biggest challenges to date, especially transitioning from being in industry where I worked for somebody to a business where I'm working for myself, is trying to balance my family life with my business life. And throughout, it is tricky because I've got 2 kids and a wife, and I've got a beautiful family, and it's always the sport shooting on the weekends and during the shop on the weekdays, finishing late for customers. And I would say my biggest challenge is trying to balance my family life and my work life.
What makes you different from other dealers?
I wouldn't comment on other dealers, but what I feel makes me different is the fact that I'm doing this from a point of where it's a hobby for me, and as a business as well. So for me, it's being in the industry and shooting as part of a sport and doing it as a hobby and something that I enjoy.
Nivesh, what was the highlight of your career?
I would say the highlight of my career was transitioning from a role where I was an employee to a role where now I find myself being an employer and being my own boss. It was a very challenging role at first. It was something that I was totally new to. Remember, I'm qualified in engineering not in any business management or business skills.
So that must have been a huge challenge for you.
It was at first, but I overcame it, and I still up to date. I'm learning every day. We all are, and I find that a big motivator and one of my challenges that I'd like to still take on.
What motivates you on a daily basis?
Well, the fact that I wake up and knowing that I'm going to be meeting new people, expanding my knowledge in firearms. But what really intrigues me is, members of the public that come to the store. Every day you meet somebody new, and there's a lot of wonderful people out there that are interested in firearms and responsible firearm handling, and would like to broaden their knowledge on firearms.
Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
5 years, I'd like to expand my store. Currently, I do not have a shooting range, which I feel is a huge disadvantage to the store, as a shooting range and a dealership, a firearm dealership, goes hand in hand. So I would see myself in a bigger store, and preferably one with a shooting range.
Finally, if you had to give our viewers motivational advice, what would you say to them?
I would say reach for your dream. 5 years, 10 years ago, I never in a million years saw myself in this position, living my dream. And I would say follow your dream, no matter what the odds are. Work towards it. Get yourself a 2-year, 5-year, and a 10-year plan. Excuse me, and work towards your goal.
Well, thank you so much for being on Careers and Culture, and we wish you all the best in your future into 2019.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.